What is going on, guys? It's Modded Warfare here. Welcome back to another episode of PS4 Jailbreak Tutorials. So in this episode, I'm going to be showing you another awesome thing that you can do with your jailbroken PS4, which is to get unlocked frame rates on your PS4 games. That includes some 60 FPS patches, which can actually get some games running at 60 FPS for the most part. Games like Bloodborne, which is a very popular one. We have Lance McDonald, who created the 60 FPS patch for Bloodborne, as well as Sekiro and some other games. And then you also have unlocked frame rate patches that Illusion001 has created. He's got a whole section on his GitHub page for lots of different games that you can unlock the frame rate for, and 60 FPS patches, that kind of thing. Generally, the way it works is that you've got some patches that just unlock the frame rate, depending on the game. It might be too unstable. In other games, you might get, higher frame rates that are more stable. It just depends. And then you also have things like lowering the resolution as well as unlocking the frame rate so that the PS4 can actually achieve 60 FPS or close to it. Obviously, this works best on PlayStation 4 Pros because you have the boost mode on PS4 Pros that can help. So if the resolution is lowered, then that extra overhead can be taken advantage of and go towards the frame rate with a PS4 Pro with boost mode. It still works on regular PS4s as well. You just won't get as high a frame rate, and the frame rate will be more unstable on base PS4s versus PS4 Pros. But this is still a pretty cool thing that you can do on a jailbroken PS4. So I'm going to show you two games in this video. Red Dead Redemption 2, where we'll just unlock the frame rate. And we've also got, of course, Bloodborne, because that's the most popular one. And we'll do the full 60 FPS patch for Bloodborne. So the best way to do this is just to use a pre-made patch, a modded update that already has the 60 FPS patch or unlocked frame rate applied to it, and you can just patch your game with it. Obviously, you need a fake package version of the game in order to do this. The only problem with those pre-made updates is that if the patch has multiple options, like, maybe just unlocking the frame rate or unlocking the frame rate and lowering the resolution to 720p or 900p, then you might not get those options if you go for a pre-made patch. Also, the other problem is that if you have a different fake package version of the game in terms of the region version, the title ID, to the patch, so if the patch is on one title ID but your game that you've got downloaded is for a different title ID, then there'll be a mismatch and it won't work. So because of that, I'm going to show you guys how to install these patches manually. You will still need a fake package version of the game and a fake package version of whatever update is required for the 60 FPS patch or the unlocked frame rate. So there's two different ways to get that. Obviously, if you know the sites that you can go to download a fake package version of the game and update, then you can go there. Obviously, I can't show you those websites in this video. Or, of course, if you have a physical copy of the game, you can just dump it and turn it into a fake package file, which I covered in episode 6 of this series, which I'll obviously link in the cards in the top right hand corner and down in the video description. Sorry for the long intro, but needed to get all of that out of the way, so let's go ahead and get into this. So assuming that you have a fake package version of the game and the update, we can get into how to actually do this. So what we're going to need is we're going to need three different things. We're going to need the patch builder. You can also use, I think, the RIP kit for this as well. It's another popular program for building modded updates. And then also you're going to need, potentially you'll need a unf self, and obviously the 60 FPS patch. This is the one for Bloodborne. The one for Red Dead Redemption 2 and lots of other ones you'll find on this GitHub page from Illusion001. So if you scroll down here, you can see you've got lots of different games. Now, a lot of these are work in progress, so they don't all work properly. For example, if I go down to Red Dead Redemption 2, you can see we've got a 60 FPS unlock, and it's got support for version 1.02 of the game and version 1.24. 1.24 is the update that I've downloaded for the game. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. There is a resolution patch as well to change it down to 720p, but for some reason this just causes a black screen for me. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. You can let me know in the comments, but for whenever I try to apply the resolution patch, the game does not start for me anyway. So I'm going to ignore the resolution patch and just go for the unlocked frame rate for this one, because that actually does work for me. But as you can see with this one, it just gives you some hex values that you need to change in the eboot.bin, which I will cover as well. So first thing we're going to do is we'll do the Bloodborne patch. So for Bloodborne, it supports version 1.09. I downloaded the 60 FPS patch from Lance McDonald's Patreon page. So you've got a 720p one and a 1080p one. So the 1080p one just unlocks the frame rate, doesn't lower the resolution. And then obviously the 720p one lowers the resolution to 720p, so you can achieve a higher frame rate, which is going to be a lot closer to 60 FPS. So that's the one we're going to go for. So the first thing we need to do is run the patch builder program. We'll go ahead and launch this, or the rip kit, or whatever other tool you have for extracting package files. We're going to grab our 1.09 update, because as you can see, if I go back into the 60 FPS patch, in the README it says right here that you need version 1.09 of the game for this particular patch. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and extract version 1.09. So I'm going to drag this in here, click extract package, and I'm just going to extract it to the same location as the package files, and I'm going to select all to extract the entire update to that location. It's only 190 something megabytes or 70 megabytes. It's not that big. So once it's extracted, we can go ahead and go back to our USB. And as you can see, we now have the image0 folder, which contains all of our extracted files, including the eboot.bin. So the next thing you need to do is open the 60 FPS patch. And we're going to just extract the 720p folder into the location of the eboot.bin. And you can try running it. Now, as you can see here, it says the file size is not correct. Can't work with this file. Make sure you use version 1.09 of the eboot. So if it says this, it's probably for two reasons. Either you've got the wrong game version, so it's not detecting version 1.09 because you've got the wrong update, or you're using the base game eboot.bin instead of the updated one, and it's not detecting it. Or the other reason is that the eboot.bin is encrypted and it needs to be decrypted, which you can do using unfself. So if we drag the eboot into unfself and click run, that will decrypt the eboot. So we're just going to wait for that to be finished, and there we go, done. And we now have a decrypted version of the eboot, so we can delete the encrypted version and then rename the decrypted version back to eboot.bin. And now we'll try and run the 720p. And as you can see, the patches were applied successfully. So there we go. So that has changed the resolution down to 720p, and it's unlocked the frame rate to give us our 60 FPS patch. So all we need to do is delete that exe now and recompile this back into an update. You don't have to re-encrypt the eboot. You can if you want. I tend not to bother, but it should still work regardless. So we're going to go ahead and rebuild this back into an update. How do we do that? Well, once again, we use the patch builder. All you have to do is drag in the image0 folder into project location. And then all you need to do is drag in the actual game package file, not the game update package file, the original game package file that the update is designed to patch. You're going to drag that into the package settings, and then you can add patch notes. So for example, I can add a patch note in here that just says, 60 FPS patch into the patch notes, and then we can go ahead and build the package. And there you go. You can see it's starting to build the modded update right there with our patch applied. And that is essentially it for Bloodborne. So all we have to do is wait for that to finish. There we go, 100% done. We can delete the log. We can now delete the image0 and sc0 folders because we've now built our package file. And there we go. This update right here has the 60 FPS patch applied, and we should be able to patch the game with it. So that is how you do that one. So now let's look at doing Red Dead Redemption. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the project here, and we'll do Red Dead Redemption. So Red Dead Redemption 2, we've got the 1.24 update, which is what's required here for this 60 FPS patch, or version 1.02. So I've got version 1.24, so I'll just drag that in here, click extract package, and again, we'll just extract all to the same location, the USB drive. This is a bigger patch, it's 17 gigabytes, so it's going to take a bit longer here to extract the whole update. Okay, so once it's extracted, we can go ahead and close out of this. And of course, we're going to go into image0, grab our eboot.bin. Now in this case, it's different because what we have are just hex values that we need to edit. So we need to do this manually. Unlike Lance McDonald's little, exe files that can just patch the eboot automatically, we have to do this manually with this. So essentially what we need to do is throw the eboot in a hex editor. So I use HXD, I'll have it linked in the description. You can just drag the eboot.bin file in. Now, if the eboot.bin does not start with .elf, as you can see, this one doesn't, then that means it is probably encrypted, in which case, again, we're going to have to load it into UNF-self to decrypt that. So we'll go ahead and do that again and wait for that to finish. There we go. And there we go. Okay, so done. So we can go ahead and get rid of eboot.bin and rename the decrypted one back to eboot.bin. And there we go. So now we can go ahead and just load in the eboot.bin again, the decrypted version. As you can see, this one starts with .elf, which means it is unencrypted. So at this point, we can then apply the patch. So what we need to do is we need to search, in this case for Red Dead Redemption 2, we need to search for this line of code right here, these hex values. So we're going to go ahead and copy that and Control F, search for hex values. You can also do search, find, and then we're going to paste in the hex values right here, click OK. And there you go, you can see it finds it right there. And what are we replacing it with? We're replacing it with this line right here. So we're going to go ahead and copy this line, and we can right click right here and paste right, which will overwrite those values with the ones to unlock the frame rate. And that is basically all we have to do right there. Obviously, if you want to try the lower resolution patches as well, it's the same thing. You've got a big line of hex values that you need to search for. So if we search for those, you can see we find it down here, and then you just replace it with this line right here to put it down to 720p. So again, you just copy that line and then right click and paste write it in, and that will get your 720p patch applied as well. Obviously, I'm not doing that because it causes a black screen for me. Again, I might be doing something wrong, but whatever, I'm just going to go with the unlocked frame rate for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and click save once you're done, and then we have that patch applied to the game. So at this point, again, we just do the same thing. We're going to rebuild this back into an update file. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and run the patch builder again, and we're going to go ahead and grab Red Dead Redemption 2. So the image0 folder, we're going to drag into project location. The actual original game package file right here, we're going to copy into package settings. And then again, I'll just edit the patch notes and add a patch note that says unlocked frame rate. And there we go. So we're going to go ahead and click build package, and that will start building the update, as you can see right here. And that is basically that one done as well. We just wait for this package file to be built, and then we can patch the game with our 60 FPS patch for Bloodborne and our unlocked frame rate patch for Red Dead Redemption 2. And again, it's the same process with all of these other games from Illusion 0001. So obviously, if you want to do a different game, let's just take one other one, for example. There are some ones that are different, like Skyrim, for example. This will probably be editing the... Oh no, okay, never mind. I guess you are still just patching the eboot.bin as well. But yeah, it's basically the same process for most of these games. You just go into the decrypted eboot with a hex editor and patch those hex values to unlock the frame rate or change the resolution, and then you're good to go. So what about Assassin's Creed here? Again, same thing. Exactly the same thing, except you're editing different ELF files instead of the eboot.bin. So yeah, it's generally the same thing for the majority of these games. So yeah, we'll just wait for this to finish building the update, and then we should be good to go. Okay, so there's that package file built as well. So we can go ahead and get rid of the log, get rid of the image0 and sc0 folders. And there we go. So we've got our Red Dead Redemption 2 unlocked frame rate patch, and we also have our Bloodborne 60 FPS patch ready. So we can go ahead and eject our USB drive, plug it into the PS4, and install these patches. As you can see, I've got both games already pre-installed. So what I'm going to do is obviously, of course, go on your internet browser, load up your exploit host, whichever one you're using. So we'll go ahead and use caro218.ir still. So we'll load this up, load up the WebKit exploit, and then we're going to go ahead and run the actual jailbreak once the WebKit exploit's loaded. And then we can run our Gold Hen payload or Mira, whichever one you want to use. And then once you have Mira or Gold Hen running, you can then go ahead and go into the settings, scroll down to debug settings, game package installer, and we're going to install our Bloodborne. Install the game first. If you don't have the game installed, then install the update. So this is our Bloodborne 60 FPS patch right here. So I'm going to go ahead and install that. It's only 170 megabytes, so it only takes a few seconds. Obviously, the Red Dead Redemption one right here is going to be longer. This is about 17 gigs. All right, there we go. So we've got the Red Dead Redemption 2 one installed as well. So let's just check. If we go to update history, you can see it says 1.09 60 FPS patch. We added that to our patch notes. And then again with Red Dead Redemption 2, unlocked frame rate. Okay, almost forgot another thing you want to do. Obviously on a PS4 Pro, head into settings, go down to system, and make sure you have boost mode enabled so that you'll get the benefit of the extra performance. Make sure you do that. Also, I would recommend changing the resolution as well. Go into sound and screen video output settings and set your resolution to 1080p. I think that's the best thing to do. Obviously, maybe if you're using a game that sets the resolution down to 720p, you could set your resolution to 720p to match. Otherwise, I guess it just upscales it to 1080p if you leave it on 1080p. So I'm not entirely sure what the best settings for that is, but for me anyway, I just set it to 1080p. And then we are good to go. So we'll go ahead and run Red Dead Redemption 2 first and see if this patch has been applied. And yep, there we go. That's good. So no black screen. It's actually loading. Obviously, if you just get a black screen or you get an error code when you try and launch the game, then you've probably made some kind of mistake when you were editing the eboot.bin with the hex editor, or maybe you've got the wrong version of the game or whatever, and that's why. But yeah, if you do it right though, the game should load. Now I don't have a save on here, so I'm just loading this from the beginning. Okay, and as you can see, the game has started here. I can already feel that it's smoother. But I also feel a little bit of hitching every now and again, so it's definitely not 60. But what I'm going to do is put some frame rate analysis tools side by side so that you guys can see the difference between the locked and unlocked frame rates. So with the unlocked frame rates, you can see that we are kind of in the 40s, even going into the 50s in some cases. But to be fair, this is just an unlocked frame rate. We're not actually reducing the resolution, so we're not going to get that much better performance here. And obviously, we're kind of in this starting section where a lot of the distant detail is obscured by the blizzard, so it's not really representative of, the actual gameplay as a whole. You're probably not going to see as good frame rates as this during normal gameplay. But this is just an example to show that, the unlocked frame rate has indeed worked. If you compare side by side, we're at basically a locked 30 FPS on the normal version of the game. And then with the unlocked frame rate installed, you can see the frame rate is going all over the place, but it's definitely at the moment going a lot higher than 30 FPS, usually around about into the 40s and even 50s in this case. But yeah, so as you can see though, that proves right there that this is indeed working. And if you can get the resolution patch to work without getting that black screen issue, and you can run the game at say 720p instead of 1080 or even 900p, then you'll get a lot better performance, even higher frame rates that's closer to 60 than what we're getting here, as we've not actually reduced the resolution. So yeah, anyway, there's a good little example there of it actually working. So let's go ahead and do Bloodborne, because Bloodborne is actually a proper 60 FPS patch in the sense that it actually does reduce the resolution. We've done the 720p one with Bloodborne, so we're actually going to get the game running in 720p. So because it's running in 720p, that leaves a lot more performance on the table that can go towards the frame rate instead of the resolution. So that should definitely help out here. So we're going to play it offline. You can definitely tell immediately that this is running in 720p. But again, with games like this, it really depends on your personal preference. With a game like Bloodborne, I mean, let's face it, the 30 FPS, the normal default 30 FPS for Bloodborne is pretty horrible. I would definitely take a resolution downgrade for a smoother experience rather than, the prettier visuals for a game like this, definitely. You can't get the best of both worlds on the PS4, so this is definitely the best way to go in my opinion for this. As you can see, it does say in the bottom right hand corner, the 60 FPS patch was made with love by Lance McDonald. So that is awesome. We can see that's definitely applied. Okay, here we go. So you can see us in the game here, and this feels very, very smooth. This feels, well, I mean, compared to the way Bloodborne normally runs, this feels a hell of a lot smoother. So yeah, again, I will go ahead and put some performance tools up on screen so you can see the difference between the regular version of Bloodborne running at its locked 30 FPS versus this 60 FPS patch running at 720p with an unlocked frame rate. And as you can see, I mean, it definitely runs at like 60 FPS during the cutscenes, which is what you would expect. But when you get into the game, especially when you get into more demanding areas, it does drop into the 50s. But I mean, let's face it, 50, FPS in the 50s is still a hell of a lot smoother than 30 FPS. It will dip down further, potentially into the 40s in really demanding areas, but for the most part, it is going to run in the kind of either high 40s or mid 50s for the most part of the game, and it will even achieve 60 FPS in a lot of areas as well. So yeah, pretty awesome 60 FPS patch there by Lance McDonald, which we applied manually instead of just downloading a pre-made update, so that you can apply it to whichever version of the game you have, as long as you're on the 1.09 update. So yeah, anyway, that's basically it for this video. There's also one for there's the Game of the Year edition and there's the regular edition as well. There's a 60 FPS patch for both for this. And obviously there's lots of other unlocked frame rate and 60 FPS patches available from Illusion0001 on his GitHub page that you guys can play around with. So again, this is just another really cool thing that you can do with a jailbroken PS4, unlock the frame rate, reduce the resolution, try and get better performance, a more smoother experience on certain games. And yeah, it's just another great thing that you can do with a jailbroken PS4. So hope you guys enjoyed this video or found the information useful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and stay tuned for future tutorials on the jailbroken PS4. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.